Here are today's top stories. The DNR bans small-scale mining as President Duterte blames illegal operations for the damage caused by Typhoon Ompong in Benguet. Lawmakers approved the creation of the Disaster Resilience Department proposed by President Duterte on second reading. Economic managers expect pressure from the weakening peso on inflation to ease during the holidays. The province of Isabela is placed under a state of calamity even as no casualties were incurred from Ompong. Good day, I'm Pia Rosas Morato. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. President Rodrigo Duterte criticized the mining industry as he blamed illegal operations for the destruction brought by Typhoon Ompong in the Cordillera region. Here's a report.
The DENR has ordered the stoppage of small-scale mining operations in the wake of Typhoon Ompong's onslaught. Environment Secretary Roy Simato says this is one step to mitigate the environmental damage caused by mining. Once stopped, small-scale mining operations will be relocated to areas less prone to landslides. Simato adds he is revoking temporary permits granted to small-scale mining companies. President Rodrigo Duterte lamented the 62 confirmed deaths in Cordillera, including the landslide in Itogon. The president stressed the 70 billion peso income from mining does not compensate for the losses and long-term destruction to the country's natural resources. The president slammed the prevalence of small-scale mining nationwide, many of which are abandoned and illegally made. Malacanang meanwhile says it will be up to the DENR to determine how to legally hold responsible those who should be blamed for the tragedy in Itogon. Presidential spokesman Harry Roque says the government opts to focus on search, rescue, and retrieval efforts in the area. Aside from the 62 deaths, authorities report 42 wounded and 49 missing in Cordillera. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Rom Dulfo.
The families of the victims of Typhoon Ompong in Baguio and Benguet received 20,000 pesos each from the Office of the President's Social Fund. Some of the cash was handed to the victims' families by President Rodrigo Duterte himself when he met with them on Monday. This is aside from the 25,000 peso financial assistance and burial aid distributed by the Department of Social Welfare and Development Cordillera. DSWD CAR Regional Director Janet Armas also says they are giving 25,000 pesos worth of financial aid for transportation and food for each victim. She added the provincial hospitals have also committed to give free medical attention to those injured in the calamity. The Philippine Amusement and Gaming Corporation or PAGCOR meanwhile released financial assistance of 20,000 pesos each to the victims' families. The European Union, or EU, has mobilized an emergency aid package worth 2 million euros, or approximately 125.6 million pesos, to support the victims of Typhoon Ompong. Commissioner for Humanitarian Aid and Crisis Management, Christos Stylianides, expressed support for the victims of the typhoon on behalf of the EU. The amount will cover shelter, emergency relief items, distribution, water and sanitation, food security, and humanitarian protection for those who have lost their homes due to massive flooding and subsequent landslides. The EU will fund partner humanitarian organizations already working in the affected areas and will address the most urgent needs of the communities stricken by the typhoon. A European Commission humanitarian expert has been deployed to the disaster area to address the needs on the ground. According to the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or NDRRMC, nearly 900,000 persons were affected by the typhoon as of September 18. At least 200,000 are being served inside and outside evacuation centers. The Department on Interior and Local Government is looking into the performance of local chief executives following the onslaught of Typhoon Ompong. This assessment is based on the DILG's Upland Listo manual given as a guide during disasters. DILG Assistant Secretary Jonathan Malaya says some governors and mayors were reportedly unreachable when Ompong lashed on their constituents. Malaya says local officials who were proven to be absent during disasters will be issued show-cause orders and made to explain. DILG-OIC Secretary Eduardo Año earlier reminded local chief executives that their presence is needed when major typhoons or disasters hit their areas. The House of Representatives on Tuesday approved on second reading a measure creating the Department of Disaster Resilience, or DDR. The lower chamber passed by a voice vote House Bill 8165 titled the Department of Disaster Resilience Act. Under the bill, the DDR will be the national government agency primarily responsible for disaster preparedness, prevention, mitigation, response, recovery, and rehabilitation. The bill seeks to create a National Disaster Resilience Council which shall serve as the policy advisory body. The bill also seeks the establishment of a Climate and Disaster Research, Education and Training Institute, which will serve as a learning and research arm in the field of disaster risk and vulnerability reduction and management and climate change adaptation. President Rodrigo Duterte earlier urged Congress in his State of the Nation address to pass a bill creating a disaster management department. Still to come, lawmakers approved the realignment of part of the DPWH budget into other major government programs. Economic managers expect pressure from the weakening peso on inflation to ease during the holidays. These and more when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Ulat sa ginagawa ng presidente.
September 5, Miyerkules, State of Israel. Sa pagtatapos ng 4-day state visit ni Pangulong Rodrigo Roa Duterte, ay nag-alay siya ng bulaklak sa Holocaust Memorial Park, Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. Dumating ang Pangulo kasama ang kanyang delegasyon sa Queen Aliyah International Airport sa Amman. September 6, Huwebes, Jordan. Tinanggap ni King Abdullah II bin Al-Hussein ang Pangulo at ang Philippine delegation. Sinaksihan ni Pangulong Duterte ang pagpirma silang kasunduan sa Business Forum sa Intercontinental Hotel. Ipinakita ni King Abdullah II ang kanilang Military Special Operations Training Center kay Pangulong Duterte. Muling nagpulong ang dalawang bansa sa pananghalian. September 7, Biyernes. Sabik na tinanggap ng overseas Filipino workers sa Jordan si Pangulong Duterte nang dalawin niya ang mga ito sa Royal Cultural Palace sa Amman.
Bakit ako pumunta dito? Well, of course, first is to make a historic visit to the Kingdom of Jordan. Si King Abdullah is a very good guy. Ano siya, sincere. Kaya matagal kami nag-usap about you. Pag-usapan lang namin yung yung undocumented ito.
September 8, Sabado, Davao City. Ibinalita ng Pangulo ang magandang naidulot sa Pilipinas ng pagbisita niya sa Israel at Jordan.
In Israel, the signing of the agreements of the employment of Filipino caregivers will help address the issue of exorbitant placement fees that cost our the OFWs anywhere from $8,000 to $12,000. In Jordan, two labor agreements will enhance the standards of protection for Filipinos employed as household service workers and regular labor deployment exchanges and communication and further studies on labor. Your government will continue to do its part to ensure that the rights of our nationals working abroad are protected, enhanced, and upheld.
September 11, Martes, Malacanang. Sa panayam ni Chief Presidential Legal Counsel Salvador Panelo kay Pangulong Duterte ay sinagot nito ang ilang maiinit na isyong pinag-uusapan habang wala siya sa bansa. Kinagabihan ay pinulong niya ang mga gabinete para sa 29th Cabinet Meeting sa Aguinaldo State Dining Room. September 12, Miyerkules, Malacanang. Pinanumpa ng Chief Executive ang halos 100 presidential appointees. Nakipagpulong din siya kay U.S. Ambassador to the Philippines, Sung Kim. Ginawaran niya ng cash incentives ang mga manlalarong Pinoy na nag-uwi na medalya mula sa 18th Asian Games na ginanap sa Indonesia. Ako po si Secretary Martin Andanar. At ito ang Duterte on Duty. Abangan sa susunod na linggo ang mga gagawin ng Pangulo.
The House of Representatives has approved the realignment of part of the Department of Public Works and Highways budget for 2019 to fund various programs of other government agencies. A total of 51.79 billion pesos of the DPWH budget for various regions has been realigned to other programs under the Department of Education, Department of Health, Department of Agriculture, and other DPWH programs. These include enhancement of health facilities, capital outlay for state universities and colleges, roads to economic zones and markets, as well as a National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Fund. Majority Leader Rolando Andaya Jr., acting as a chairman of the Committee of the Whole, said the lower chamber will continue reviewing the budget to strengthen what the executive proposed. He stressed that rather than reducing budgets, which will happen, is a strengthening of the government's programs. Plenary debates on the national budget were stalled due to claims of insertions in the budget of some lawmakers. Monetary officials expect inflation pressures generated by the weaker peso to ease towards the Christmas holidays. Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Deputy Governor Diwa Gingundo says this is due to the seasonal influx of remittances from overseas Filipino workers during the holidays, as well as receipts from the business process outsourcing sector. To date, the peso has depreciated by about 8% and is trading at the 54 peso level to the US dollar. Bunigundo, however, pointed out that foreign portfolio investments and foreign direct investments continue to attract inflows. This means inflation remains manageable for the rest of the year, although it will reach its peak this quarter before going back to the 2 to 4% inflation target for the next 2 years. Meanwhile, Bunigundo says Typhoon Ompong's effect on the economy is likely to be manageable, as the impact is said to be isolated and confined only to certain areas. On the impact of the rice supply, in particular, he noted that the harvest season is coming soon, with some farmers harvesting early to the impact on rice would be minimal. Data privacy has become an important concern in a world where private information is bought and sold by unscrupulous individuals. Let's find out in today's Business Matters with Miguel Hill.
Welcome to Business Matters. Today, data privacy and what it means to you. With us is Pierre Tito Gallia of democracy.net.ph, an ICT advocacy group. Welcome to the show, Pierre.
Thank you for having us, Miguel.
Okay. What personal information is worth stealing, Pierre?
Well, as clearly defined by the Data Privacy Act, Republic Act 10173, everything that is our personal information is worth stealing. And even greater than that, there is what is called sensitive personal identifiable information, or SPII, which is even more dangerous when it's stolen by someone. These include medical records, your insurance records, anything that can be exploited to hurt someone or steal from someone or acquire the assets of someone.
Okay, so how real is the threat of data theft? You know, what comes to mind is not only your address, but someone can actually masquerade as you online. Is that?
That is actually possible. If anybody watches a Hollywood film where the protagonist replaces a picture on a passport, that's already the old school way of identity theft. But these days, it can be done online for various things. If a criminal gains access to your credit card information, suddenly that person will be able to spend your money. You could lose your land, you could lose your property, or your car might even be foreclosed and things like that.
So it's more than just financial.
Quite recently, when the Comelec happened, was information on people who were applying for gun ban exemptions. This is sensitive information. It shouldn't have come out.
Okay, so let's get this out of the way. We have the national ID law passed already, and does the national ID present any additional risks?
First, let's speak about the experience of other countries.
Okay.
The Philippines is one of the last remaining countries that does not have yet a national ID. Other countries that have been able to strengthen their archiving, storage, and recording capabilities so that they would not be hacked. On the other hand, you have countries where, like India, with a lot of ICT capable people there, and yet their national ID system was broken into.
Was hacked, in other words.
Yes, that poses a risk to all of us. On the other hand, we have the existence of the National Privacy Commission, Cybercrime Information and Coordination Center, the NBI Cybercrime Division, and the PNP Anti-Cybercrime Group, who are all working to help write the implementing rules and regulations of the National ID System Act so that they will harden the system against any threats.
Okay, the reasoning of some people is in order to minimize this kind of risk is you should have less information out there in digital form, in the internet. But in this day and age, you cannot avoid it.
That is true. Don't give any more information than is absolutely necessary.
Exactly. If you walk around the malls, you're going to be stopped by someone with a piece of paper offering you something.
Yes.
And I understand that form is worth money to them.
That is true. It's used for direct market profiling and other such things. Now, there's nothing truly illegal about direct marketing per se. However, the Data Privacy Act says that there is what is called the proportionality of gathering information, and there has to be the proper processing of information. You can actually refuse to provide your name, but you can still get the freebie, whatever it is.
Okay. Thank you, Pierre. That's all we have time for. Stay tuned for part 2 of our feature on data privacy. Thank you for watching the show where we make it our business to give you information that matters. I am Miguel Hill for Business Matters.
Muslims give high regard to cooking and eating kosher as part of their faith. In Zamboanga City, a new policy is set to ensure that food sold everywhere is certified as halal. Janice Cave has this story.
Halal. It is a sign that hangs at some beef and poultry shops as well as eateries in Zamboanga City in an attempt to lure Muslims to patronize these establishments. And to Muslims, eating kosher is not only a healthy practice but a divine order. No agency, however, checks and certifies if indeed food items sold are authentically halal. Now, an ordinance adopted by the Sangguniang Panlungsod of Zamboanga City will ensure that local Muslim residents or any interested party will get only certified halal beef, poultry, and other goods. The ordinance will require establishments that cater to Muslim food and raw products to acquire a halal certification from accredited bodies. It also moves for the creation of a council that will ensure compliance, inspect establishments, and investigate violations. The ordinance is authored by Councilor Maria Paz Abubakar and was enacted by the City Council on August 20. It now awaits the approving signature of Mayor Maria Isabel Climaco Salazar to take effect. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Janice Cave.
Up next, the province of Isabela is placed under a state of calamity even as no casualties resulted from Typhoon Ampong. Gilas Pilipinas wins a closed-door FIBA qualifiers match against Qatar. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Class, Siya ang ating school nurse.
Oo mga bata, nandito ako ngayon para ituro ang 4S kontra dengue. Unang S, search and destroy breeding places. Pangalawang S, seek early consultation. Pangatlong S, self-protection measures. At pang-apat na S, say yes to fogging in times of outbreak.
Naintindihan niyo ba, class? Ano ang dapat gawin?
Mag-4S kontra dengue!
Ano nga yun, class?
President Rodrigo Duterte urges the public to send donations for victims of Typhoon Ompong to the government or humanitarian organizations like the Red Cross instead of private TV stations. Duterte says donors are better off giving their donations to the government or the military and let them distribute these to victims directly. The president acknowledged that people have a tendency to distrust the government's sincerity in terms of disaster relief efforts. He, however, noted that most officials are really just doing their job. On the other hand, Duterte claimed that he personally saw how staff members of a TV station, which he did not name, would sort out donations that were usable for them. Isabela Province was placed under a state of calamity following the assessment of at least 3.6 billion worth of damage caused by the onslaught of Typhoon Ompong. Isabela Vice Governor Antonio Tonipet Albano and the provincial board members cited the collated reports at the Isabela Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction Management Office. Palay was hardest hit in the province's agriculture sector, with damage reaching 1.9 billion pesos. Damage to infrastructure had been reported at 57.5 million pesos. Meanwhile, President Rodrigo Duterte has praised Isabela's disaster risk reduction officials and leaders for attaining zero casualty from Typhoon Ompong. Presidential Advisor for Political Affairs Francis Tolentino said Isabela's disaster preparedness must be emulated in other typhoon-prone areas. Gilas Pilipinas went ablaze in the second half to bludgeon Qatar 92-81 in a closed-door FIBA World Cup qualifiers battle at the Smart Araneta Coliseum in Quezon City. The Nationals recovered from Qatar's 17-point lead with its transition game and a better defensive showing in the final 20 minutes. Japeth Aguilar made 16 points, 9 rebounds, and 1 block for Gilas. Alex Cabagnot also made 16 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals. Maud Mohammed made 26 points, 7 points, and 5 assists for Qatar, which fell to 2 wins and 6 losses. Gilas now moves up to 5-3 in the standings, a full game ahead of Japan, which shocked Iran earlier Monday in third place in Group F. Residents in Marawi are preparing for the second Cambisita, where authorities assess the city's most affected areas and plan ahead for rehabilitation and rebuilding efforts. Sweet Lukman of the PIA has filed this report.
Preceding the simulation proper, the training participants undergone through series of orientation and preparedness drills that made them ready for scene replication and later on be equipped during the actual execution of second Cambisita. OCD ARMM Security Risk Assessment Officer Janicio M. Mondejar Jr. felt being fulfilled becoming part of the LRM team. Moreover, the objective of the simulation is to improve the data collection performances of the enumerators, interviewers, and surveyors involved in the land mapping. Despite the painstaking and careful preparation for second Cambisita execution, at least the LRM team is open for the arguments on the overlapping of territorial boundaries among the MAA residents, but apt to resolve the land issues and concerns as much as possible. Furthermore, DENR will serve as implementing body on land resource management, solid waste management, and debris management in MAA, together with Laid Kabagani for PNA Newsroom. Sweet Lukman, Philippine Information Agency.
Let's now check out the weather forecast for Metro Manila and the rest of the country. Here's another look at today's top stories. The DNR bans small-scale mining as President Duterte blames illegal operations for the damage caused by Typhoon Ompong in Benguet. Lawmakers approved the creation of the Disaster Resilience Department proposed by President Duterte on second reading. Economic managers expect pressure from the weakening peso on inflation to ease during the holidays. And the province of Isabela is placed under a state of calamity even as no casualties were incurred from Ompong. Thank you for watching another edition of the PNA Newsroom. To check out these and other stories, visit the PNA website or follow the Philippine News Agency on Facebook and Twitter. For more stories about the government and how it serves the Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. And that's your daily dose of the latest news and information that you need to know from the PNA Newsroom. I'm Pia Rosas Morato. Good day.